It's just off on Sundays?
Yeah, on Sundays, 8 o'clock and 9:15. Okay. So this discourse we're going to learn was said 40 years ago. There's a special chavivus, a special preciousness to something that was taught 40 years before. Gemara says it takes 40 years to understand the teachings of your teacher. So this was said by the Rebbe in 1982, and so it was said today on the 13th of Tishrei, the anniversary of the passing of Rebbe Marash. And let's go right to it. You got it? Page 4. In Sukkos you shall dwell for 7 days. Every Jewish citizen should dwell in the Sukkos. Every Jewish person should dwell in the Sukkos. It's known the questions of our Rebbeim on this pasuk. The Torah divides here and says, the first half of the verse says, you should dwell in Sukkos. And then it adds a separate thing, which is pertinent to every Jewish person, that all Jewish people should sit in the Sukkah. So the question is, the first part of the pasuk seems to be addressing all the Jewish people as well. So what's the second half of the pasuk adding? You should dwell in Sukkot for 7 days. Every Jewish person should dwell in the Sukkah. What's that adding? Everyone's included already in the first part of the verse. If the Torah wanted to add the adjective to describe the Jewish people as Ezrach, which just parenthetically, the word Ezrach means I will shine. And the reason why that title is used for the Jewish people in reference to the Sukkah specifically is because there's a part of us that doesn't shine today and will only shine when Mashiach will come. And that part of the Jew that will only be revealed when Mashiach will come, that part of the Jew is something that finds a home in the Sukkah, and that part of the Jew is what we're able to internalize through the Sukkah. So there's something very futuristic about the Sukkah. The word Ezrach means the one that will shine, I will shine. And the part of me that's going to shine, the Mashiach part of me, which I won't get in touch with fully until Mashiach comes, I'll be able to internalize through being in the Sukkah. I'll be able to get in touch with being in the Sukkah. My great-grandfather, Rav Yar, he wouldn't leave the Sukkah all 7 days of Sukkot. He wouldn't leave. He loved it. He says, listen, after Yom Kippur, he cleaned more your Averis, and Shem is pumping. You just go in the Sukkah and just like fabrang and enjoy life. It's good. He felt like, like he had like a full dialysis or whatever from all of this, who knows what, spiritually. And so, now it's time to party. Anyway, so the first part of the verse addresses all the Jewish people. It says, everyone should sit in the Sukkah. And if it wants to mention the word Ezrach, hold on a second. A Jew wants to Zoom with us. Let me zoom him up. But Sukkos Teishu Shivas Yamim. Sukkos you should dwell for 7 days. And then it says, Kol ha'ezach v'yisrael, all Jewish citizens should sit in the Sukkah. So what's the superfluity? Right, what's the superfluity? Thank you for that multi-syllable word. We haven't had those since you left.
Used to say that word in the Gemara classes.
So if the Torah does want to use that word, the word Ezrach, the word citizen, it could have said, in the Sukkos you should dwell 7 days, including the Ezrach. It could have said, and all the Ezrachs, and all the citizens. But it adds at the end of the verse, and all the Jewish citizens should sit in the Sukkah. It could have just said, in the Sukkot you should dwell for 7 days, and every Jewish male. If that adds something, then just add it. Why do you have to repeat again the last two words, shall sit in the Sukkah? That's what we're discussing. Va'afal pikein, And yet the Torah does repeat again and says, every Jewish male should sit in the sukkah. With his davar should get lechol Yisrael nemar Yeshu Sukkos lashon nister av shegam imoim yochel dam lashonechach teishu Sukkos. There's also a difference between the way the Torah addresses the Jewish people in the first half of the verse and the way it addresses the Jewish people in the second half of the verse. In this first half of the verse, it's in second person. The Torah is saying directly, you should sit in the sukkah for 7 days. And then in the second part of the verse, all of a sudden it switches to third person. Every Jewish male shall sit in the sukkah. We're not talking directly to the Jewish males. We're saying every Jewish citizen, every Ezra. We're just saying that they should sit in the sukkah. How can we switch from second person to third person? The Gemara infers from the latter half of this verse, every Jewish citizen should sit in the sukkah. The Gemara infers from this that that all the Jewish people are able to sit in the sukkah. All Jewish males are able to sit in the sukkah. So, what's the Gemara's source for saying this? Because it says in the Torah, every Jewish citizen should sit in the sukkah. Why do you need that part of the verse? On the surface, the reason the Gemara knows that we're all able to fit in one sukkah and that the sukkah is a place of unity is because the Torah uses this inclusive word, every Jewish citizen should sit in the sukkah. If that was the thing that gave us this insight, the Torah could have used that word in the very beginning. The Torah could have said, all of you should dwell in the sukkahs. Call Yisrael Teshuva Sukkos. All of Israel, you shall sit in the sukkah. If the inclusive word is what tells us that all the Jewish people are able to fit in one sukkah and able to be in one sukkah, then we could have used that inclusive word in the very beginning of the verse. If the extra word call is what teaches us this, how can we use that word only in the latter half of the verse, not in the beginning of the verse? If all we needed to derive from the latter half of the verse is that all the Jewish people are able to sit in one sukkah, we could have used another word in the beginning half of the verse. We could have used the word kol as the very first word of the verse, and then we would have already been able to derive from that extra word that all the Jewish people are able to sit in one sukkah without even mentioning the second half, the latter half of the verse. So just to recap the questions. Question number one is, why does the Torah add that second phrase at all? Every Jewish citizen shall sit in the sukkah. Every Jewish citizen is included in the Torah's instruction to sit in the sukkah. Question number two is, how come it switches from the second person, you shall sit in the sukkah, to they should sit in the sukkah in the latter half of the verse? And question number three is, if you were to answer me and to tell me that the reason we need the latter half of the verse is to tell me that all the Jewish people could sit in one sukkah, if that was the purpose of the latter half of the verse, that could have been, that need could have been satisfied by adding the word kol in the beginning of the verse. Okay, next paragraph. There is one mitzvah which is connected with the mitzvah of sitting in the sukkah, and that is the mitzvah of Holiness. It says on the first day, you should take these four species and bring them together. The first day is referring to the first day of Sukkos. And that's why it's called the first day, even though it's on the 15th of the month. So you should take the lulav and esrog, and you should rejoice before Hashem for 7 days. It means the Torah is connecting the mitzvah of Sukkos with the mitzvah lulav and esrog. ובפרט, על פי מה שכתוב בנגיע לדלת תלמידים, שמצווה מן המובחר שיהיה בסוכות, כמו מה שיש מצווה מובחר, ולא רק בנגיע למצווה סוכה, מייקל משמעון שצריך להיות תשכין דורי. אלא חידוש הוא מצווה תלמידים, שמצווה מן המובחר, ליטל מסוכה דווקא. It's a mitzvah and a muvchar. It's considered a better way of performing the mitzvah to do the lulav and esrog in the sukkah. And this is not something that just enhances your mitzvah of sukkahs. In other words, there's two different reasons why you should lulav and esrog in the sukkah. Reason number one is because you're supposed to live in the sukkah. You're supposed to do everything in the sukkah. Everything includes the mitzvah of lulav and esrog. So a better way of doing the mitzvah of lulav and esrog is doing the sukkah, because that emphasizes how you're doing everything in the sukkah. That emphasizes the sukkah as your home. But that's just how the mitzvah of lulav and esrog being done in the sukkah enhances the mitzvah of the sukkah. The language in the code of Jewish law is that it is considered a better way performing the mitzvah of lulav and esrog to do the lulav and esrog in the sukkah. That means the mitzvah of lulav and esrog is better when it's done in the sukkah. It's not just something which enhances the sukkah, it's something which enhances the lulav and esrog. So this highlights the connection between the lulav and esrog and the sukkah. Close in Mazeh. The geshem she'atziv the sukkah yedu shkoi so ruim sukkah achas. Trina achtos. Kach in dal minim from the siba shediv dal minim el davki the tisha yesh menem. So what's the relationship between the mitzvah of sukkah and the mitzvah of the lulav and esrog? Why is it that the lulav and esrog belongs to be done in a sukkah? This is because the theme of sukkahs is the unity of all the Jewish people. And as we shall see, the reason why Hashem told us to take these four species specifically is because among all of the things that grow, it is these four species which highlight unity, and therefore they are connected to the sukkah. They're about the theme of sukkah, which is the theme of unity. Okay, so all we said, summarized the last paragraph, is the reason why mitzvah lulav and esrog is associated with sukkah is because this theme of sukkah is unity, and therefore lulav and esrog is meant to be done in the sukkah because it also, as we shall see somehow, is connected to unity. Okay, is base. You will understand the general explanation, or at least the seminal point of explanation. It says you should dwell in a sukkah specifically. And that means the kind of home Hashem wants us to have during these 7 days is not a permanent home, rather it's a temporary home. And this is so critical to the mitzvah of sukkah, so that to the extent that if someone dwells in a sukkah that is over 20 amas, which is either 30 or 40 feet high, he is not fulfilling his mitzvah. Because once a building is built to that height, the Talmud says that a person would only build something to that height if they wanted to build a permanent structure. And since the sukkah is meant to be a temporary structure, it's not kosher if it's that high. That means when Hashem commands us to build a sukkah, there's two ways this mitzvah could have been given. It could have been given to make the sukkah a temporary home or to make the sukkah a permanent home. So the Torah emphasizes that it should be permanent. You should live there. You should live there as if it's your home. But on the other hand, what kind of home should you live in? You should live in a temporary home. So there's two opposites here. Hashem could have told us to build a permanent structure that we should live in on Sukkos. Instead, he told us to build a temporary home. Hashem could have also told us we should live in a temporary home in a temporary way. We should have a snack there every so often. We should do some things in that place like we would do in a home away from home in a temporary place that's not really our home. Should we consider the sukkah like our office? Hashem could have said you should treat the sukkah like your office. But Hashem says two opposites. On the one hand, Hashem says, I want you to have a permanent home. And where should your permanent home be? Your permanent home should be in a temporary place. The same way you live at home permanently, that's how you have to live in the sukkah. So the question is, why are these two opposites in the midst of sukkah, that it's a permanent home and yet it's a temporary structure? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. I know we hear in America, we hear that English people are slow, so making sure you got it. Okay. Everything that exists in the Torah, all matters of Torah mitzvahs, are reflected in our own service of Hashem. There's a Torah, as it says in the pasuk, this is the Torah a man. And the Zohar says what that means is that whatever you read about in the Torah is really a story of yourself. The Torah is you. So if you learn the Torah about Sarah, there's Sarah in you, there's Pari in you, there's Nebuchadnezzar in you. There's a Torah, whatever is in the Torah, there's somehow that's in you. The 248 limbs of a human being correspond to the 248 mitzvahs. The 365 sinews correspond to the 365 negative commandments. Shalachin kedeli is tam bepashters. Arizay desha tam tim vayilkacha. Adilimina shemev de ma'aseh kim rachmat saseh shalisas. And therefore, in order to be complete, the Torah says you should be complete. How can you be complete? The Torah continues with the Lord your God. In order for a Jew to be complete, he has to be with Hashem. So that means you have to learn Torah. You have to do mitzvahs. Because since your body is connected to Torah, your veins and your body and your bones are designed to be in sync with the Torah. So in order for you to be whole, you have to have Torah. So in order to explain the two opposites as they are in the sukkah, let's explain first these two opposites as they are within ourselves. We'll understand how these two opposites of having a permanent home and a temporary home, how they are in ourselves. This will help us understand also what the meaning is in the sukkah. What this means is, Chadgis, on the one hand, or Nezdal, Kol Echad Mi Yisrael. On the one hand, every single Jew is considered like Adam. Adam is considered formed by the hands of God. God made Adam with his hands. So every Jew is considered like Adam. Next page. We find a connection between Adam and every Jew. The Gemara says, why did God make Adam as one person and only then give him a mate? In order that everyone should say, and every Jew should say, that God made the whole world for me. So everyone's supposed to have that conviction, that truth, and know that the whole world is resting on your shoulders. Just like God made the whole world for Adam, God made the whole world for every Jew. So in a similar way, just like Adam is called someone who's formed by God's hands, so too Kobi Solomani is formed by God's hands. God took his hands and made you. The Maimon Azal, Kol Yisrael Yeshim Chel Ilam Haba. Another proof, it says in the Torah, the Talmud says in Sanhedrin, every Jew has a share in the world to come. Where do we know this from? It says in the Pasuk, your nation is all righteous. They will inherit the land forever. They are the branch of my planting, the work of my hands. God says about every Jew, they are the work of my hands. And not only are they also made by God's hands, but God continues, the end of the verse is, they are the work of my hands to be glorified from. I mean, it's not something that Hashem is embarrassed about. Oh, I also made this faulty 1946 model of a Homo sapien. The Eibusher glorifies himself in the creation of a Jew. Became, but nevertheless, so despite the fact that we are created by God's hand, and therefore you would think that we have some kind of permanence, some kind of eternity in the way that we are, and yet the one consistent thing we have in our life is change. Behind it. Hashem made the world also and Hashem doesn't change, and the world also has an element in it that doesn't change. It says in the Torah that God promised Noach that day and night and all the seasons will not change. So although God is infinite, and there is an element in the world that doesn't change, but in general, the world does change. And just like this is in the world at large, in the great world, so too is this in the microcosm, that a human being is someone that always changes. So one element in us is that we always change. That's how we are similar to the sukkah, that we are a temporary structure. We're always changing. And before we get to the other point about what element we have in us that's similar to the permanent structure in the sukkah, let's first go into a little deeper this idea of us always changing. Next paragraph. The idea of constant change is also virtuous. God commands us in His Torah to always go higher in matters of holiness. We're always meant to get better. So change is a good thing. The Torah says you're supposed to be a mahalach. Mahalach means you're always supposed to go forward in your service of Hashem, always moving.
So where did you learn that from?
There's a pasuk, it's quotes over here in note 23 in Zechariah. I will give you walkers among the standards. There are those who stand. The angels and souls in heaven are called those who stand. And Hashem says, I'm going to give people who walk. Who are those who walk? Not the souls, not the angels. Those who are born in this world. Only those who are born in this world have this unique ability to go from strength to strength, to constantly go higher. Before the soul came to the world, it was, what's the word, stagnant? Stagnant in the same place, right? Although in heaven also, there was a concept of going from strength to strength. It says in the Gemara, in the Kabbalah, that every time they daven in heaven, they go to a higher level. Shachris, Mincha Ma'ariv, Moshe and Aaron and all the Neshamas and the Natan ascend with every tefillah. But it's not considered walking, not considered movement. Why isn't it considered movement? It's movement, which is called standing. It's called staying in the same place. Why? Because the kind of movement they experience is something which has a relationship to the place they started from. They move, but they don't really leave the place that they started. They're moving, but they're not really going away. It's not a jump, it's not a leap. It's a slight elevation. There's some connection to the place they were at first. It's specifically by the neshama going down to this world from a high roof to a deep pit. It's this descent that is for the purpose of an ascent. So Hashem allows us by coming to this world to leap to a whole new level than before we came to this world. And as soon as you reach that place, Hashem tells you to go from strength to strength. And the next place you reach is as being comparably higher than the place you were before. And that's how life continues, as it says in the Gemara, that tzaddikim, Talmidei Chacham, do have no rest. You're supposed to constantly jump higher and higher, and it's supposed to be a jump forward, which is incomparable to the place you were before, Adi and Sof, until there's no end. But yet, despite the fact that this is a virtuous thing, on the other hand, there is something else, which is change. Shem created change. Yes, there's a positive element, an aspect to change, that we're able to change for the better, but yet there is something which seems to be the opposite of anything infinite, and it changes. Since God's desire is that this change, in a positive sense, should be done with absolute perfection and with absolute goodness, and that's why God gave us a choice. Hashem could have got us to do the right thing without giving us a choice. But He specifically gave us a choice because He wants us to choose ourselves. He wants us to have the Zohar says when you get something for free, it's called shameful bread. You don't appreciate it. So Hashem specifically gave us a choice of goodness and life and death and evil, and He told us, you should choose it. Hashem wants us to make the right choices in life with our own power. The Gemara says a person would rather have one measure of grain that they planted themselves than 9 measures of grain that someone else gave them. How much more so? This discourse wasn't really, it's not edited by the Rebbe, and therefore a lot of things the Rebbe says very briefly. Try to know the whole what's behind it. So you have to go to other discourses and to figure out the whole story. But another discourse, the Rebbe asked, why is it that Hashem made us in a way that we need to feel accomplished? We need to do things ourselves to feel accomplished. Why couldn't Hashem make us in a way that we would just get things for free and enjoy that? Never said that because Hashem wants us to have the ultimate good, and the highest level of good, the highest thing period, is to be a partner with Hashem. And since Hashem wants us to be a partner with Hashem, therefore Hashem put into Marcus this thing that I need to be creative. I need to do things my way. Why? Hashem could have made him like to fit into the box of London and be like everybody else. No, he said, I need to be creative. Well, the reason Hashem gave you that bug and he gave all the Jews this buggy thing is because Hashem wants us to give us the ultimate good, which is that we should be a partner with Hashem. We should, like Hashem is a creator, we should also be creative. So when you get something for free, you don't appreciate it. You rather have one measure of yourself than 9 measures of someone else. And the truth is that you're able to take that one measure and get 9 more measures. By acting according to the 10 commandments, the Rebbe says you'll get also the 9 measures of your friend, whatever that means. So because we're in a deep pit, yeah. So and not only that, next page, because we're in a deep pit, therefore we have a possibility of choosing the wrong thing. And although the Zohar says on the verse, a soul that sins, the Zohar says, what? A soul that sins? How could that be tva? It's a wonder. How could that happen? The Zohar wonders about a sin even in the sense of any kind of fault, any kind of lacking, not necessarily sin in a simple sense. How much more so is the Zohar wondering, how could a soul sin in the simple sense? And yet, God gave an alibi to people. It means that Hashem created us in a way that we have an excuse, that we have an alibi for our misbehavior. Hashem created us in a way that we're coming from such a high place to such a low place, and that the world is in a way that yes, it's possible to make mistakes. It happens. That person sins, and he blemishes, and he goes off the road, etc. Wonder what that etc. includes, etc. Etc. is all of us. However, it's only temporary descent. And therefore, it's not a true descent because it's only temporary. It says in the Torah, for a small moment, I have left you alone. I have left you. So even in this world, it's only considered a small moment because the purpose of a descent is for the purpose of an essence. The point we're trying to say is that Hashem did create us specifically in a way of change, and in a negative way. It means that we could make mistakes, etc. And the reason why he did this is because Hashem wants us to have the ultimate good. And the ultimate good is that we should be able to rise above the negative changes and make steps forward in a positive way. Had Hashem not put us in a place where we were able to make mistakes, then we wouldn't be able to really take steps forward. In Gan Eden, they don't have any possibility of making mistakes, and they don't really go that far. They don't really make any movement in Gan Eden. They stay generally in the same place they started in Gan Eden. So in this world, we have the deficiency on the one hand of constant change and constant challenge. And on the other hand, with this, Hashem gives us the ultimate good, which is we're able to achieve with our own initiative, with our own power, a real step forward spiritually, and the ability to go higher, not just a little bit higher, but incomparably higher to the place that we started in, and continues to go higher and higher. Like an arrow. Yeah, going back forward, back in order to reach a higher place. Exactly. Yeah, but we don't have to load it, make such mistakes the next time. We could jump without making more mistakes. But if you made the mistakes, then it must be you have to go much higher. Shkoyach.
Thank you. May I ask a question?
Sure.
Is there are you able to say the answer to the Ezra?
We didn't answer that. No. Let's start.